Rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending. Victories before the actual games. And Jarom and I talked about this yesterday, but the general excitement about a BYU football schedule is very real, perhaps more real than ever, with the first Big 12 rundown.
It's like a temple announcement for BYU football fans. That's what the schedule is. Yeah!
Jarom, as you look at the Big 12 schedule, you told me your favorite things yesterday, and we talked at length about that.
Yes,
but
Julie Andrews.
If you had to pick a victory before an actual victory, just in the construct of the schedule for BYU, what is it?
It's hosting a Power 5 team in November for the first time ever. BYU's had great Power 5 games at Provo, never in November, and now BYU's going to have two with Iowa State and Oklahoma, which is pretty cool. In 2013, BYU went to Wisconsin and Notre Dame, but BYU's always had to be the team that went on the road. Now you actually have them at home, which is pretty exciting. Point two there. Getting both Texas and Oklahoma is a win. We don't know when they're going to bounce. We don't know if BYU is going to get to play either of them, let alone both, in year one, and that's exciting. At Texas, I don't think BYU fans feel, based on how 2014 went, that that's an overwhelming game. Kansas has gone in there and won within the last 2 years. BYU certainly did it. BYU competed in 2011, lost by one there. That's a game BYU can go in and compete well and perhaps win.
There's a weird thing for Texas fans with BYU.
Absolutely, there should be. There should be, given how crazy 13 and 14 were. Those were blowout BYU wins, of course, thanks to Taysom Hill. And then the balance I talked about. I just love the fact that you're never away from home too far or too much. There is a 3 of 4 on the road spell, but a bye breaks that up. So it's actually 3 and 5 weeks, which isn't crazy. So those are three things that stick out in terms of wins outside of the games themselves.
For me, the home schedule altogether is a massive win. Again, we're talking construct of the schedule, but the home schedule altogether, because athletic director Tom Homo told us yesterday, we made basically one main request, the nuance of,
got it.
Can you give us a Friday night game or even a Thursday night game on conference weekend? And the Big 12 accommodated that. Apparently no issue right there. And in comes Cincinnati. I love the matchup with Cincinnati. In fact, I said I would like Cincinnati to be BYU's first Big 12 game. It's not the very first, but it is the home opener.
And we've done this before, Friday night with Cincinnati.
Yes.
We have done this in 2015, I want to say.
A Friday night under, just what we are assuming going to be beautiful weather conditions in late September.
Yeah, this will be amazing.
It will feel electric.
The Big 12 home opener.
On a Friday night at LaVell Edwards Stadium against a very interesting team. Cincinnati is the one group of 5 team that solved the college football playoff formula and made their way in. 2 years ago. They had an all-time team, but they've maintained. They're a really, really good program. I'm intrigued by that matchup. I think that's super favorable under the Friday night lights. I like Texas Tech to break up what I think is the most critical stretch for BYU between October 14th and November 4th, when you have the 3 road games in a 4-game stretch. But to your point, it creates some balance by throwing Texas Tech in there on October 21st. And then, the meaningful November games with Iowa State on November 11th and senior night against Oklahoma.
How awesome is
on
that?
November 18th.
That's great. Like, if you could have picked any team to play on senior night, like Texas probably would have been pick number 1. But I'm thinking Oklahoma would have been pick number 2 there. That's just beautiful. And you look at the November schedule, 2 West Virginia. Shout out to my sister and brother-in-law who live in Peterstown, West Virginia. They will be at that game. Iowa State coming in. More on that coming up with L.J. Martin. He's got a friend that plays for Iowa State, a safety there. And then Oklahoma, of course. And at Oklahoma State, who's sort of, once Texas and Oklahoma leave, they're sort of the power broker at the table. They're one of the more powerful voices there. Mike Gundy is a tenured voice. That long mullet is also tenured on the back of his head. Like, that's a team that BYU sort of has to, like, okay, they probably are the best team in here. I know TCU just went to the playoff, but I'm talking like over the last decade or whatever in the Big 12. Oklahoma State's sort of the next big dog to sort of be like, all right, got to go through them quite a bit.
Mike Gundy is a man, and I think he's 56 now.
Yeah, you and I are more like Mike Gundy when he said that than what he is now, yeah.
Other victories as it pertains to just the schedule layout. And we've put a ton of emphasis into November, and we should. That is an unbelievable turnaround for BYU based on what they typically had in November home schedules. Hosting Idaho State or Southern Utah on Senior Day in cold, snowy Provo.
Live on BYU TV. That goes away, by the way. No BYU TV games.
That's over.
That's over.
That's done.
It was a great run.
But if it's giving that up to get Iowa State and Oklahoma
no question.
In a Power 5 conference.
Freaking cares about doing the SCU game. Yeah.
0 opponents play BYU off of a bye. That's a little
That
bit
is an interesting
advantage.
one. Harrison Collier
Right?
looking that one up.
BYU's got TCU after their own bye. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Hey, the team that went to the national title game.
A favorable September. Kansas, not a world beater. Good team on the rise under Coach Leipold.
Be 3-1 after 4 games. And feeling good.
Going into the home opener against Cincinnati at 3-1 would be
that you
something,
hope to win,
right?
And be 4-1 in ranks. Yes. That's the hope.
The timing of the bye is nice.
Yep.
Yeah. So there are a lot of good things.
Yeah. Are there any losses, real quick? A single loss in the schedule? We talked about wins. Any losses?
Like guaranteed, like whoa.
No. I'm talking as it pertains to the construct of the schedule.
Oh.
I don't think so, right? I think
No,
it's all
I was
good.
nitpicky. I said I wanted Baylor because I like the rivalry going on there, and maybe the bye week
But
back.
not a loss, just a one.
No, absolutely.
I think generally no loss there. Okay, we're not talking about wins and loss of the schedule, just to be clear. Don't be an idiot. Topic 2. Monday, former Cougar Travis Hansen came on the show and said the following about BYU men's basketball.
With what they have, what they're able to performance-wise get out of this squad year after year, or the squads they've had, has been remarkable. So I think they've overachieved from where they're at.
Sorry, what? Okay, it's I almost can't say it with a straight face. Is BYU men's basketball overachieving, Spence?
I picked BYU to go 19-12, and they are probably a game under in terms of what they're pacing for. They're probably pacing for 18-13 in the regular season.
Yeah.
So I can't back away from what I initially expected them to do. No,
you can go down a game.
I don't think BYU is overachieving. I do think that they are playing hard and they are in every game. They have been in games with Gonzaga and St. Mary's closer than I expected them to be in those individual games, but still come up on the short end. And then they haven't competed well in games against Santa Clara and San Francisco and looked marginal against LMU in that road game. Of course, the loss to South Dakota is just an absolute head-scratcher.
Oh, yeah, that one's terrible.
They've had their moments, and I expected it to be like this, where you're going to win some games and you're like, how in the world did they win that game and play that well? Utah, Creighton, come back from down, 25 against Dayton, was it? Or 22?
I don't know.
Something crazy. Right? So you're like, whoa, how'd you do that?
Anything against someone in Dayton or against Dayton, we just expect a big comeback.
Yeah, just
unless
wild,
it's
right?
Ole Miss 2015.
Dayton should have known.
Not over that one.
Dayton should have known.
Not over that one.
And then, again, the just, performances against South Dakota, and they looked like they were sleepwalking on the road trip to the Bay Area, especially against San Francisco after the loss against Santa Clara.
Yeah.
And so this team is exactly what I thought they would be.
And we let them off the hook?
And maybe even a game underneath, ultimately, what I picked them to do. So that's not to say that the coaching staff is not just digging in deep to film and working hard. Like
I love the staff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But overachieving, no. If this team was pacing for 20 or more wins, then I would say yes, they're overachieving. But right now, no. You got to beat LMU. You got to do something special here in the back half of conference play to overachieve.
It's an interesting thought, but no, BYU's not overachieving. If you believe BYU's overachieving, then that means they underachieved in recruiting, because then the players aren't good enough. Like if the staff is summoning greater performances than the roster is, which is what it feels like Travis is saying, then that means the roster isn't good enough. That means BYU didn't recruit well enough. And let's be honest, Rudy Williams, Jackson Robinson, Noah Waterman have shown some real flashes of brilliance. We just haven't had that sort of consistent clip from those three that we thought was going to be a contribution at a certain level. And anytime you start a true freshman off a mission that isn't top 35 like Colin Chandler, like we expect Colin to come in right away and be a guy, Dallin Hall's been really, really good in a lot of games this year. There's been a couple games that had a lull. I talked about January's probably going to have a little dip, and he did, right? But then he rebounded with an amazing performance versus St. Mary's. So there's a couple of things coming into the season that we knew were issues. BYU had 2 bigs. That's it. Walking into the year, that was going to be a problem. Surprisingly, BYU's been pretty good rebounding, pretty good defensively in spite of that. So that's to the credit of the staff and the players.
Absolutely.
But certainly BYU's underachieved overall with a couple of numbers. Let's look at them. Right now, this is the second worst Ken Pom since 06 that BYU has right now. Worst offensive rating since 05. 95 in net's not great. But defensively, 28th is awesome. That national rank, not the metric number itself, but the national rank of 28th, is the lowest since 2012, or highest, you could argue.
Yeah,
defensively.
the best.
Which is good. There's good and there's bad. But to say BYU's overachieving, then you have to acknowledge the roster isn't good enough then. You can't have all the good things there. So, yes, BYU walked in with a roster that wasn't as talented as the last 3 years. And have they competed well and tried hard and almost beat? Yes, but competing well and trying hard is not good enough at this school. This school goes to NIT or NCAA tournaments. Right now, BYU might make the NIT.
They're on the NIT bubble.
Which is a weird thing. I don't want to track NIT bubbles. I don't waste my time with that garbage, okay?
We got people that are actually doing that for us.
Yes, other people will do that. I don't want to look it up. No, I talk about tourneys or not, right? So certainly BYU tonight is a big game in that regard because you've got to beat LMU at home. LMU has been a really good team in the league, 16-7, winners of 4 in a row, took down Gonzaga,
third place.
Beat BYU. Like, they're in the spot BYU wants to be in, which is that 3 seed. I don't see any way BYU gets the 3 seed. I'm hoping BYU can somehow scramble and get the 4 seed. Maybe the 5. I feel like BYU is sliding into the 6 or 7 at this point, and that just feels terrible.
7 games.
BYU is certainly capable of better. Let's see it. But they are who they are at this point, and they're going to put up a good fight, and hopefully they get a couple bounces here or there against the teams that aren't Gonzaga and St. Mary's, especially at home.
7 games remaining in West Coast Conference play. If this team wants to overachieve, you probably have to go 6-1 in the back 7, which is just.
That means you're winning in Moraga.
You have to win either, on the road at Gonzaga or at St. Mary's.
I'm not worried about those 2. I'm worried about the other 5.
5-2 would be remarkable. Then you finish with a winning conference record.
5-2 is too much to ask. I think 4-3 is a realistic.
Ambitious, interesting stuff. In Travis's defense, BYU's coming off that St. Mary's game where they absolutely, in the construct of like as you look at just that individual game, they overachieved in that game. Yeah, with 3 guys down. The season,
but
as
again,
a whole,
losers talk about margin. Winners talk about winning.
All right,
hey, it was a 1-point game. Yay! By the way, BYU one of 2 teams that have lost to a ranked team by 1 twice.
Oh, now that's
BYU
brutal.
and Michigan State.
How do you bounce back against LMU?